The Barbarian, keen instincts, primal physicality, and most of all, an unbridled, unquenchable rage. In this video here today, we're going to go through what it's like to build a Barbarian out. Maybe you're trying to build one for one of your companions like Karlach, or you're trying to make this your main character. What we'll do here is by stepping you through the character creation process, showing you a little bit about how to distribute your stats and abilities, what kind of skills make a lot of sense. Then we'll give you what the future progression of the Barbarian looks like, talk a little bit about some really solid feat choices, and close the video out talking multi-class options. You can quickly navigate to any part of this video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. Also, don't forget to check me out on Twitch, where I'll be streaming Baldur's Gate 3 and a number of other games like Payday 3. Also, if you are other classes you want to have more information on, you can find an entire playlist linked at the end of this video and in the description and pinned comment. But let's get started here on how to build a Barbarian for beginners in Baldur's Gate 3. Loading into the game, let's talk about your race options. Now, with Baldur's Gate 3, you will not have any race options that give you any kind of ability score bonuses. In fact, everyone just starts with the same 8 abilities across the board, so simply just pick the race that makes sense for you and the roleplay you have in mind for your Barbarian. There's really going to be no issue with any race that you select. With that being said, let's go through some ones that have some particularly good standout capabilities, starting with the Half-Orc. The Half-Orc has savage attacks. When you land a critical hit with a melee weapon attack, you deal an extra dice of weapon damage. So you're just going to give a chunky amount of crit damage out as a Half-Orc. Relentless Endurance also means that when you reach 0 hit points, you just gain 1 hit point instead of becoming down. So it pretty much keeps you around for one whole more round of damage towards you, right? Whatever it is. You get hit, you get knocked out. Well, in fact, you just get 1 more hit point and you have a chance to live through more. Another good option here is Halfling, just because of the lucky attribute here. So when you roll a 1 for an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can re-roll the die and must use a new roll. Also, it's funny and ironic to play a Halfling Barbarian. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Tiefling is a really good option if you go with the Zariel Tiefling, because they get both Branding Smite and a Searing Smite. If you've already played the game and you've gotten the companion Karlach, and I don't want to say anything more about that, well, she's already a Zariel Tiefling, and so you can go ahead and take advantage of those. If you've already played the game, you can now basically play as Mama Karlach. Human's always a nice option, just to get the ability here to have an additional skill of proficiency, and on top of that, they have 25% more increased carrying capacity, which is nice. Gith are always good just because of their abilities to give them short, longsword, medium. I'm sorry, short, longsword, and greatsword proficiency. But as a Barbarian, you have simple and martial weapons, so you don't need to worry about that as much, as well as having light and medium armor proficiencies. So all the martial prodigy stuff isn't as great on a Barbarian Gith because you already have them. But the cantrips that you get, Mage Hand is whatever it is, but you also get Enhanced Leap, which is really nice, and Misty Step, so you can allows you to teleport around. It's going to be quite nice for a Barbarian. And maybe you don't like the look of the Gith, so you'll go with the non-crackhead version and go female Gith like I would. But the other and last option I want to give you here is Dragonborn. And you know, there are really not many classes I would say that the Dragonborn thrive at, because the Dragonborn feel kind of lackluster compared to all the different proficiencies and stuff you get. But the subrace portion of Dragonborn gives you a breath attack that corresponds to their color and element, as well as a resistance to that. So the blood of ancient dragons flows from your veins. You are resistant to acid damage, meaning that you will take half of the amount of damage. So choosing one of these is actually quite nice, since you will be in close combat. You'll be able to use your breath attack. There is a weapon that the Dragonborn can get that is a glaive that allows their breath attack to actually do more damage. And breath attacks now, as of some of the more recent patches, scale with your level. So this is actually very good for a melee-based character. As far as Barbarian mechanics go, let's have a conversation about rage. Now, rage is pretty important. It's the big linchpin of being a Barbarian. It can sometimes mean why you'd want to take 1 level splash into Barbarian just to unlock rage. But while raging, you are stronger and you deal 2 extra damage with melee and improvised weapons when throwing objects. You have resistance. Remember, resistance means you take half damage to physical damage and advantage on strength checks and saving throws. This is huge. It's going to be a massive increase to your damage, and you have a lot of abilities that unlock when you rage, depending on your subclass. So you'll see these 2 very important things though. Rage ends early if you don't attack an enemy or take damage each turn. So this can also mean with a ranged weapon. So using a ranged weapon allows you to keep your rage going if you did not get hit. And you cannot cast or concentrate on spells while raging. Meaning, let's say I cast something like Cleric's Bless and then enrage. Well, I will drop that Bless because I cannot concentrate because I am just enraged. Contrary to, say, like a druid, right? A druid who can use one of its wild shapes can cast a concentration spell before going into a wild shape. It's not the same here with Barbarian. This is a bonus action, which is lovely, but it uses a rage charge. You'll start off with 2 rage charges. You'll get up to level 3 rage charges. You'll spend the majority of the game with around 4 rage charges, and at level 12, you'll have 5 rage charges. And these will reset every long rest, and it's pretty much the currency you use to enrage. So keep that in mind. Now, the other big, really important mechanic for Barbarian is unarmored defense. So every character gets their dex modifier added into their armor class. Your dex modifier would be this number right here, and in this case, it says -1 to dex checks. Let's just assume it says 2, right? In fact, here, we'll do this just so it makes sense for this video and this portion of what we're talking about. Now, this says +1. That means my armor class is whatever my armor class is plus my dexterity, depending on certain situations. Well, with the Barbarian, I take my dex and my constitution and add them together, but only if I am not wearing armor. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, you know what? Hey, this just means that I'm going to take a lot of damage. That's not the case. In fact, you will probably have some of the highest armor class in the entire party because of all these benefits that'll stack. So having no armor means you've got 10 armor class. That's your base armor class. Well, now our dex brings us +1, and now our constitution brings us another +1. That leaves us with 12 armor class. Some of the starting heavy armor in the game is 12 armor class. So you have the chance to have some pretty good armor class that's going to scale very well with very, very strong items in the game that are going to reward you for being unarmored. So don't think not wearing armor means you're going to take a lot of damage. You'll still be able to mitigate it quite a bit as a Barbarian. Another important mechanic to look at is reckless attack, which you'll get at level 2. So until your next turn, you have advantage. Remember, advantage is you roll 2 dice, and you take the higher of the 2, versus disadvantage, you roll 2 dice and take the lower of the 2. But you have advantage on attack rolls, but enemies also have advantage against you. So you would use this as a reaction in any time that you would. It says action here, but you can use it as a reaction, meaning that when you go to do the attack, if you miss, you can choose to use reckless attack if you want. Just kind of be careful with this because, like I said, it gives the enemy advantage against you. You probably don't need to worry about it because you're just stuffed to the gills with a high amount of HP. I didn't mention this in the ability section, but the Barbarian gets the most hit points in the game. They start with something like 1d10 or 1d12, whichever one it is, but a disgusting amount of hit points. They have the highest amount. So you will not really need to worry about it as much since you're so tanky, and especially depending on your subclass, but still, it's worth noting that it does give the enemy advantage on you. Subclasses for the Barbarian are actually very fun, with Wildheart, Berserker, and Wild Magic, all delivering 3 different types of play style with this class. So let's take a look here first at the Wildheart, where you will then select a bestial heart. And this will be either bear, eagle, elk, tiger, or wolf. Bear here, while raging, you use Unrelenting Ferocity. Here it is. So you're going to get a heal, which is awesome. And you have resistance to all damage except psychic damage. So while rage gives you that physical damage resistance, right? Bearheart gives you resistance to all damage except psychic. So you fire or whatever, was it fire, earth, water? No, whatever the resistance or whatever damage is coming your way, you're going to be able to have it, which is very, very nice. And you get a free heal. It's really awesome because you're doing this while you're enraged. It's probably the best of the bestial hearts, I won't lie. Eagle Heart is also very good. While raging, you can use Diving Strike, leap down onto a foe, knocking them prone. So you get a whole really nice ability to leap into things and knock them prone. And prone is nice too because, as we kind of nest this down here, they can't move or take actions, they can't move or take actions, bonus actions, or reactions, and has disadvantage on strength and dexterity saving throws. But here's the important one. Attacks against a prone creature have advantage if they're made within 10 feet of the creature. So it's a nice way to just get a lot of advantage going here. Also, foes have disadvantage on opportunity attacks against you, and you can use dash as a bonus action now. So it allows you a lot of mobility. Elkheart's going to give you a really cool charge called Primal Stampede, which will also knock things prone. but it's nice here is that it will knock all enemies in the way prone. So charge forward, attacking all enemies in the way and possibly knocking them prone. So it kind of gives you not an area of effect, not a cone, but a straight line area of effect that can knock things prone, and you increase your movement speed by 15. So again, a lot of mobility. Tiger Heart gives you Tiger's Bloodlust, and your jump distance is increased by 15 feet. Couple that with the Gith's ability to increase their jump naturally, you're going to be leaping across the whole damn battlefield. But Tiger's Bloodlust allows you to do an AoE bleed attack, which is pretty cool. And then lastly, Wildheart gets Inciting Howl. Each ally within earshot can move an additional 10 feet during their next turn, and your allies have an advantage on melee attack rolls against enemies within 7 feet of you, which is really, really, really lovely, of course. So if you have a good melee party, Wildheart can be very fun. And then this will progress, because this is your level 1 as a Wildheart. At level 6, you'll get another aspect to choose. This is called an animal aspect. You'll choose bear, chimpanzee, crocodile, eagle, elk, honey badger, stallion, tiger, wolf, wolverine. You can find the entire list of what those all do and where they are at the BG3 wiki linked in the description below. But just to give you an example here, bear, your carrying capacity is doubled and you have advantage on strength checks. Eagle, you can see in the dark and gain advantage on perception checks. I'll give you one more here. I like tiger. You add an additional strength modifier against bleeding or poisoned targets and gain proficiency in survival. So a lot of really cool utility is added in with the Wildheart. It just is a very, very fun subclass. Level 8 gives you land stride. So difficult terrain no longer affects you. And then you get an additional animal aspect at level 10. So you can see Wildheart is by and far one of the strongest subclasses because it gives you so much to play around with. Now the Berserker I think is pretty cool too, because it's just a very... If the Wildheart has all these complexities with, oh, choose a heart and an aspect and all this and all that, the Berserker is just, yeah, you're going to go kill things with Barbarian. Because you get... now, Frenzy rather than Rage. Your Rage turns into a Frenzy. You gain Frenzied Strike and Enraged Throw. You can also make an improvised weapon attack as a bonus action. You have resistance to physical damage and added damage. It's the typical same stuff pretty much as Rage, but now you get these two actions that you can use, and they're bonus actions. So a Berserker can use Frenzied Strike as a bonus action in a round. But if you do, it will cause Frenzied Strain. So every time you use Frenzied Strike, it reduces your attack roll by 1. So this adds up until your frenzy ends. Personally, my Karlach is a Berserker, and I love her. Might go Wildheart though, because it's so goddamn cool by comparison. I really like Frenzied Strike because basically you do a hit with your main weapon, and then if you miss or you want to deal even more damage, you do Frenzied Strike. But maybe I've already multi-classed into Fighter, and then I'm going to use Action Surge and do another main hand attack again. There's just so many things you can do with layering to make Frenzied Strike and Berserker be particularly really good. Level 6 though, you do get Mindless Rage. So while raging, barbarians cannot, or this barbarian cannot be charmed or frightened. And then at level 10 you get Intimidating Presence, which can instill fear in everyone around you, which is cool. The last one here is Wild Magic, and Wild Magic is kind of wild. I didn't mean for that. That was stupid. That was not an intended joke. But you get Rage Wild Magic. So you enter into Rage that releases all the magic roiling inside of you. So you cause a random magical effect to happen, very similar to the Wild Magic ability for sorcerers, where every time they cast a spell, a Wild Magic Surge happens. So with this Wild Magic effect, I don't want to ruin it for you because there's a whole bunch of different things that can happen. Mostly positive, some negative. You can find that list again in the link below to the BG3 wiki, but half the fun of playing a wild magic barbarian or a wild magic sorcerer is the randomness of what happens when you do this, and I don't want to ruin it. Like, for example, for a wild magic sorcerer, you can turn everyone into cats and dogs. So I want you to be surprised, but it is a very fun, chaotic way to play barbarian. I'll just give you one example here. Magic Retribution, you are protected by wild vengeful magic. Enemies that hit you take 1d6 force damage in retaliation. That's something that can happen when you trigger your wild magic rage, which is really cool. And then you also get Magic Awareness, so anyone within range adds their proficiency bonus to saving throws against spells. And this proficiency bonus starts at 2, becomes 3, then lands finally at 4 by the time you reach the end of the game. At level 6, you get Bolstering Magic, so you or an ally receive 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and ability checks for 10 turns. Also, You can do this for specific spell slots. So you can have your ally recover a spell slot. So the Barbarian becomes like not a healer in the sense that they heal wounds, but a healer in the sense that they can heal someone's expended magic slots, which is actually very fun. Then lastly, unstable backlash at level 10. When enraged, when you take damage or fail a saving throw, you trigger another wild magic effect. So you kind of have these magic effects cascading off of your Barbarian. It's a lot of fun and a lot of chaos. Which then brings us into a conversation about ability scores or stats and your skills. So as a Barbarian, you're going to want to focus on your strength. Also, you're going to want to focus on your constitution and your dexterity. Those are going to be important here because they're going to then push into your armor class. Like right now, we're going to get +4 to our armor class. So we'll start the game with 14 AC. Now, the conversation here about strength and whether we put our 2 points here or 2 points into somewhere else is going to be dependent upon you and what you maybe have in mind. What I will tell you is that probably one of the more, I guess, min-max ways to approach this is to put the +2 points into this. And it's worth noting that every 2 points after 10 points are invested into an ability score gives you +1 to your modifier. Take, for example, intelligence. Now it's a 0. Now it's a +1 because I put it at 12. So it's important to note here that at level 4, I can use the feat improved ability score, which would put 2 more points into my strength, making it 19. Well, both of those are odd numbers. I'm not getting any benefit from that. But in the first act, there is a quest with a hag, and that's all I'll say. But you can get her hair, and her hair will give you +1 to any ability. So by level 4, you can have a total of 20 strength, which is your max strength, and be doing a ton of damage because this number will go from +3 to +5 because 18 would be +4 and then at 20 it would be up to +5. So there is that route you can take. A lot of people have told me like, why are you doing that? That's a bad way to do it. I'm assuming you're probably taking that route, so I apologize. I will not assume you will. So maybe you want to do this and you can put another 2 points here into dexterity here. I'm sorry. Put the 2 points here into dexterity for increased initiative. Maybe you're using finesse weapons. Maybe this makes sense. It's probably better to drop it right down here into constitution. Conversely, too, you can put it into something down in this region. If this is your main character, going into charisma is not bad, and having wisdom at 10 is actually not too terrible either, because you want to have at least no penalties to any to any wisdom saving throws, which are going to be hold person, charm person, stuff like that. So you can do something like this. You can do something like this and put the point somewhere else if you want to put it up to 12, whatever you want to do. But I'd say this is a pretty good baseline to go with and just kind of improve things as you see fit and kind of go with whatever makes the most sense for you. Personally, I'd probably do like something like this. That's probably how I would go about it if it were me. Now, as far as our skills go, since you're playing a Barbarian, you still want to have maybe Intimidation up. You have special conversational options as a Barbarian, which is kind of fun. Every class does, but Barbarians are pretty good. They just kind of yell at people. Having Athletics is actually quite good for shoving, but this is going to depend also on your background. You want to try and have at least one proficiency in a conversational skill, Deception, Intimidation, or Persuasion, and having a proficiency in Insight and or Perception is pretty good because you'll be using those throughout the game a lot. So make sure you try to drop at least one proficiency in them, either through a background or a proficiency of your choice. Speaking of background and origin, let's have that conversation. So you can choose one of the origin characters to play as. Remember, you can respec them, and you can be whatever class you want, so you can be a Barbarian. Karlach is your default Barbarian if you want to just kind of play on the rails. You can play with a custom origin, which is what I almost always go with, or the Dark Urge, which is a custom origin character. And the Dark Urge is a very fun playthrough. You basically wake up with no knowledge of what happened before, and you have these unending urges to maim, kill, burn for the blood god. And I won't spoil it. That wasn't a spoiler. But there are some wild things that happen for you at the Dark Urge. You can either resist it or embrace it. And it's a very fun playthrough for either a second playthrough or even a first. And it's going to drastically change the playthrough for a first one. So when you go through a second time, you're like, wow, I didn't even know I could do all this stuff because I killed everything before or whatever it is. And then as far as your background goes, please go with whatever one fits the role play for the character you have in mind. That's what I will always tell you. go with something that makes sense for you. You know, are you a former soldier who's kind of given into the wild ways of nature and becoming a barbarian? Are you an eschewed noble who has, or the black sheep of the family who has become a barbarian? Whatever, an outlander who just kind of fits when I kind of think about it, right? Whatever it is, please choose the role play for the character. It's a single player narrative game. Don't get too crazy with the min-max. If you do want a min-max option, Guild Artisan is nice because you start with both Insight and Persuasion as skill proficiencies already taken care of. If you can hear the lawnmower in the background, it's just going wild over here and I can't stop it. But either way, those are some good options here for your background. Again, we talked about how Insight and Persuasion are important. You'll be doing them probably the most throughout your entire campaign, especially Insight, because it will actually unlock portions of conversations which otherwise would have been barred for you for, say, maybe romances or what have you. Some pretty good feat options are going to be dependent upon the type of barbarian you're playing. Let's go through some really good standout ones. Of course, ability improvement is always good. You'd simply put 2 points into here. Of course, this makes me 19 in my strength, but I've already talked about how you can simply use an item in the game to put you at 20. But you can also split this and put 2 points into 2 different ones if you've got 2 that are uneven and you want to make them even. Those are always great. Athlete is another great one. This is what's called a half feat, meaning that you are going to get half of the feat is going to give you some sort of characteristic, and the other half of the feat is going to give you an ability point. So for example here, this is giving us either strength or dexterity. But athlete also is going to make it so that when we are prone, we get back up faster, and our jump distance is increased by 50%. So you can couple this with some of the bestial heart stuff that you're going to be getting from the Wildheart Barbarian, right? You can have a lot of fun with that. You can kind of say, well, I am now the Eagle Heart, and the Elk or Tiger, and I am just going crazy, right? Like Tiger Heart for my jump distance increase in conjunction with my 50% increase here from jump. So you can have a lot of fun. Again, if you're a Githyanki, you can go ahead and use your special leap you get from that. So you will be leaping all over the place. If you are a barbarian using dual wield, get dual wielder. 2 weapon fighting is going to be particularly good for you because you're going to get a bonus from that. You would probably want to pick that up from a fighting style that you'd get from maybe fighter. But dual wielder here allows you to dual wield weapons that do not have the light characteristic, which is huge. So you can dual wield long swords, and you gain a +1 bonus to armor class while wielding a melee weapon in each hand. This is very, very, very nice, of course. Those are some pretty good ones. Going back down here, where am I looking? Mobile is very good, so your movement speed increases and difficult terrain doesn't slow you down when you dash. And if you move after making a melee attack, you don't provoke any kind of opportunity attacks. Now, some big standout ones, a particularly popular one is to use Sentinel here, which is when an enemy within melee range attacks an ally, you can use a reaction to make a weapon attack against that enemy. Target ally must not have the Sentinel feat, but you also gain advantage on opportunity attacks, and when you hit a creature with opportunity attacks, you can no longer move for the rest of its turn. So you couple Sentinel with Polearm Master, and there are tons of polearms in this game. This is where I actually have my Karlach built, is with Polearm Master and with Sentinel. But when attacking with a glaive, halberd, quarterstaff, or spear, you can use a bonus action to attack with the butt of your weapon here. Oh, there we go. 1 to 4 bludgeoning. And then you also can make an opportunity attack when a target comes within range. So this allows you to use the Sentinel portion of opportunity attack here. You gain advantage on your opportunity attacks and you lock them down. And polearms naturally have a further reach with all their weapons. So they're much easier for you to lock that kind of area down. You're very much a zone control master. Another really big one here is, of course, going to be Great Weapon Master. So when you land a critical hit or kill a target with the melee weapon, you can make another melee weapon attack as a bonus action that turn. So maybe you didn't go with Berserker and you've done a critical hit, or you killed someone. Well, now you can just follow it up with a hit from Great Weapon Master here, which is always lovely. But that's not all. You also, attacks with heavy melee weapons you are proficient with can deal an additional 10 damage at the cost of a -5 to attack roll penalty. So this is something you can toggle off. It's in the passive portion of your UI at the very bottom of the screen. You just go ahead and press that button and you can turn it off. So if you're maybe trying to blow through some just easy light chaff monsters, you just kind of want to get through them, you can go ahead and use that and it gives you quite a bit of an advantage. Or if you want to go and hit a boss and you're like, you know what? This boss is it's got a lot of health. Maybe I'll keep this on, and I just do a ton of damage whenever I actually do hit them. Some other big options here are Savage Attacker. When making a melee weapon attack, you roll your damage dice twice and use the highest result, which is always really good. And you can get stuff like Resilient here if you really want to help out with some proficiency with saving throws. Whereas Durable. Durable is good if you regain full hit points each time you take a short rest, but you also gain +1 con. Remember, Constitution, in this specific scenario, let's say that I had... in this specific scenario, where is it? Durable. This isn't going to give me +1 con up to 17. But let's assume I had 17 con. This now puts it to 18. So that can be that little bit that gives you over the edge there. Lucky's good here for your luck points, which you can use to gain advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, or saving throws, or to make an enemy reroll their attack rolls, which is actually very nice if you're fighting against a big scary boss. Very, very good. Mage Slayer allows you to kind of shut down any kind of mage's concentration abilities, and when they cast a spell in melee range with you, you get a reaction to immediately attack the caster, which is just very, very, very nice. So a lot of really good ways that you can really leverage a ton of things in the feat list. There is also Tavern Brawler if you want to go with an unarmed type of approach for maybe a barbarian monk, stuff like that. Tavern Brawler here, when you make an unarmed attack, use an improvised weapon, or throw something, your strength modifier is added twice to the damage and attack rolls. So if my strength was at 20, that would add not just +5, +10. So Tavern Brawler can be one that can be used to really great effect depending on what you choose. The progression point for Barbarian, though, is just pretty much leveling up and getting a lot of nice features. The biggest thing that happens for every single martial class, for the most part, though, at level 5 is this extra attack. So whenever you go to make a melee attack, you'd use your action. And now when you have extra attack, you get to follow it up with another attack immediately. You don't get an extra action, you just get 2 attacks within 1 action. It's huge. Every single martial class really needs it. Your movement speed increase again here for just being a barbarian, so you get to move quite quick on your toes. Being level 6, you're going to get some sort of subclass feature here. So in this case, that animal aspect that we talked about before, with all these different ones that you're going to unlock, depending upon which one you want to go with. It's entirely up to you. I'm just going to press a button and keep forging forward. Level 7 is going to give us Feral Instinct. You have honed your instincts to the utmost degree. You gain +3 bonus to initiative, and you can't be surprised, which is actually quite good. This enables it so that you can actually go first very frequently in combat. Level 8 here is going to give us our Land Stride for difficult terrain, which is always lovely. I'm just going to go ahead and pick another feat and just go ahead, and we're all the way up to level 9, which is particularly good with Brutal Critical. And here it is. You've trained to strike swift and true. When you land a crit hit, you roll an extra damage die as well as the normal additional critical dice. So you just are going to pour a ton of damage out whenever you do damage. Then at level 11, you'll get Relentless Rage. And the way this works here is, so whenever you're raging, you are get the same effect that the half orc gets. So if you get reduced to 0 hit points while you are enraged, you gain 1 hit point back and you're not downed. So this allows you to kind of stay in the fight for a little bit longer. It's always quite nice. Multiclassing for the Barbarian is actually very wide and diverse. You have a ton of options despite the fact that you are a strength-based character that uses an ability that shuts off casting and or concentration. A lot of people will go with like a barb and a barbarian. Those are fun. You can go with barbarian and a druid of the moon, which is very clunky but very popular in 5th edition D&D. You can go with barbarian and fighter. In fact, I would even say if you want a very vanilla, easy to play barbarian, 9 levels into barbarian, probably going berserker since it's very just kind of straightforward, and then 3 levels into the fighter subclass of champion allows you to do crit hits at 19 rather than 20, and you can even further increase this. And if you're a half orc with savage attacker, your critical strikes are going to be disgusting as a barbarian because they get improved even more at level 9 with barbarian's passive ability we talked about just a little bit ago. So that's a very good just kind of entry level barbarian that you can have a lot of fun with. But we're actually going to go with a barbarian and a warlock here today for the Barblock, as it's called. Now, you don't need to actually invest a ton of points into charisma for this. You're not going to be using the warlock's capability to freely and openly cast spells unless you want to do it in the times before you become enraged. Remember, you are going to lose concentration spells and the ability to cast spells when you are enraged. In fact, another really popular one is Barbarian and Sorcerer. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So once you've selected your Barbarian, you have the choice here. Do you progress up to level 5, or do you just jump into Warlock immediately? The way I approach every one of the martial classes, and again, I'm talking about classes like Ranger, Barbarian, Fighter, Paladin, is to simply put 5 levels into them, because you want to unlock extra attack as fast as you can. And the reason behind that is because it gives you such a good power spike in the game. So we're going to go ahead and just progress through here. As far as subclasses go, I think this kind of comes down to you and your preference. I would probably go Wildheart Bear to make you even more tanky and really just pouring on tons of damage, but you can go with a Berserker if you just really want Barbarian to kind of be a little bit more on the rails and less kind of mental thought invested in this. You want to just go and smash people in the face. We're going to push here. Okay, I'll just choose Great Weapon Master. I don't know. We're picking one. For Barblock, again, you're still going to be your main point is being into close combat. So don't think that these feat selections change. You can go with something like Warcaster if you want, but you're not going to be maintaining concentration in close combat anyway, right? So let's go ahead and go with Great Weapon. At level 5, we're going to get our extra attack and our fast movement, 2 crucial bits and pieces here, right? Keep in mind, too, you can change your Bestial Heart at any level once you've leveled up, just like in 5th edition. So now that we've gone from level 5, we've chosen to go into level 6. This is when we would multi-class into Warlock, and we would go from there. So taking a look at this, we have some cantrip options and things that we can go with. Stuff like Blade Ward actually isn't terrible, right? Take only half the damage from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing attacks. Well, if you're playing a Barbarian, you're already kind of getting that. Those are all physical things anyway, right? So you can go with like a cantrip like Friends, so that you get the advantage whenever you're talking to things. This helps you out from any kind of conversational standpoint. Eldritch Blast is also not bad to take, because maybe you open up with using Eldritch Blast because you're not quite in range and you don't want to enrage just yet. You've got the option if you so wish. Then for our subclass, I'm going to go with the Fiend. You can go with another one, but the big thing I want here is Dark One's Blessing. When you reduce a hostile creature to 0 hit points, this gift from your patron grants you 1 temporary hit point. This will scale with your character level, I believe, meaning, so this is your Barbarian level, this is your Warlock level. You put the two together to get your character level. So this is going to help you just to kind of give you passive hit points. It's quite lovely. And you're going to get Armor of Agathis, which is our big focus here. So this is not a concentration spell. It just simply lasts until long rest. So if you cast no other spell other than this, it's actually pretty sick, because you can essentially use this here to give yourself 10 hit points. And when you are enraged, if something hits you, you're going to reactively deal 5 cold damage to them. This is the real kind of focal point behind why we're choosing this whole class. And it doesn't really matter what the damage is here. The big thing is it's giving us 10 hit points and reactive damage. We don't care if it doesn't really go off. You can go with some of the other things here, like Arms of Hadar. So you jump into close combat and then use Arms of Hadar. You explode necrotic magic around you, and then you use Enrage. You don't need to start the fight in Rage or Enraged as a Barblock. You can kind of have some fun, finesse your way around. You can use stuff like, that's concentration. You can use Hellish Rebuke if you want, but this is, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to cast it when you are enraged. So even something like Hex, which is particularly very good, you want to probably steer clear from it as the Barbarian, because it does require concentration. So keep those things in mind. Just anything here that you see says concentration, maybe not as great. But you can still use stuff like Burning Hands and whatnot before you actually jump into your Enrage. We'll jump here into our final level. No, that's level 2. We're going to go ahead and choose another spell here. I'll just go Burning Hands and Eldritch Invocations. So these, more often than not, you'd go with Agonizing Blast and Repelling Blast, so that your Eldritch Blast, which is a cantrip, can be used prior to you being enraged. You can use it to kind of manipulate people around. You can do some stuff. But you can also do stuff like this, you know? False Life, which does not require concentration. You cast False Life on yourself at level 1, as a level 1 spell without expending a spell slot, and you get temp hit points. So personally, I'd probably go, yeah, you know what, Repelling Blast is good to move people around, but this is nice. It gives me stuff like that. This gives me Disguise Self. You don't want that one. Where's the other ones I was looking at? If you're a human, Devil Sight is very good here. Beguiling Influence can be nice to give you proficiency in Deception and Persuasion if you didn't want to pick them up as skills at the beginning of the game. Beast Speech you're going to get Speak with Animals if you go with Wildheart, so maybe not as crucial. And Armor of Shadows can be nice, but the problem is it's a mage armor spell. This is 13 plus its Dexterity modifier, so you can actually use this if you so wish, but maybe you just want to go with Agonizing Blast so that it helps you out. But remember, this adds your Charisma modifier to the damage, so unless you've gone heavy into the Charisma, it's not going to be as crucial or huge. It's probably what a lot of people do whenever you're building an actual Warlock. But Fiendish Vigor is particularly good here for just getting some temp hit points. I'll put Armor of Shadows because why not? We'll go ahead and go to the next level, where we choose our Pact Boon. And this, I think most people would think, well, why don't I want to just simply go with Pact of the Blade? So here's why this is important. You can summon a pact weapon or bind the one you're wielding, making it magical. Pact weapons use the wielder's spellcasting ability modifier instead of strength or dexterity. We do not want that. We're still a strength-based character. So we're actually going Pact of the Chain. And this gives us the ability to summon up an imp. And imps are nice. Look at this. Summon a familiar with the form of an imp that can fly, turn invisible, and sting enemies. There you go. Free poison damage. It flies around. It can do this all over the place. It does 1 to 4 piercing and possibly deals additional poison. I mean, you can even summon a Quasit if you so wish, and it can scare enemies. Frightening them is always nice because frightened enemies also have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. So you have these capabilities. You can even summon a familiar if you want. Chain's pretty good because we're now going to stop putting points into this, what's this thing called? Into this class. Another really good ability here is Misty Step, which you can open up the fight with, right? You move to where you want to go. Then you use your bonus action to cast Misty Step and put you into a really good place of attack or whatever. Again, you remember you can't do this if you are enraged. And now that we've done that, we would spice back into our Barbarian here, pushing ourselves further and further all the way to our max level. So we would get 9 levels into Barbarian and get our aspects online and everything like that. So that is your Barblock. It is fun, it is different, and you're using some of the more passive or health benefiting abilities of the Warlock rather than all the heavy hitting abilities of the Warlock. It makes for a very fun and different, unique playthrough. At that, it brings our video here to a close. So hopefully you now have a better idea of how to build out your Barbarian or how to build out Karlach. Whatever it is, there's a lot of different ways to approach this class in a lot of very fun ways. It's very diverse for one that you would think is just simply, okay, pick up weapons, smash thing, and face. And you can still play it just like that and have just as much fun. The game does leverage plenty of ways to make unarmored a very, very, very strong way to play in Baldur's Gate 3, as well as just smashing things with a great weapon. If you have any suggestions for multi-classes or other ways to approach the class, please by all means let it be known in the comment section below. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.